Hello everybody and welcome to another video on the CinemaSpeak YouTube channel. My name is Brad, I'm the host of the CinemaSpeak podcast, and on today's video, very excited about this one. It's a first for me, I guess. It's my first ever 4K review, as we are reviewing Arrow's 4K release of David Lynch's Dune. Now let's get into this. First of all, David Lynch, one of my favorite filmmakers, if not my favorite filmmaker ever, so I was very excited when they were putting out a 4K release of Dune, even though I would say Dune is his weakest film, and I think even his most ardent fans would agree with me on that one. Dune is an interesting film. It was critically panned upon its release, it was a commercial flop, and it's easy to see why. Clearly trying to piggyback on the success of Star Wars, Dune is way too introspective, way too obtuse to be a big blockbuster and a crowd-pleasing hit like Star Wars would be. It's easy to see why Universal Pictures wanted David Lynch to direct Dune. He was coming off the success of The Elephant Man. He was the hot director in town. This guy was so spicy. He was on fire at the time. And in fact, it was such an awful experience for David Lynch directing this film that he really never did a big blockbuster like this again. Which is actually, I think, beneficial to his career because he basically got to do, you know, what he wanted to make for the rest of his entire career, which he's still going. Love the guy. Good on you, David. So Dune is a really interesting film because it's both extremely hard to follow, but the story is fairly simple when you boil it down. It stars Kyle MacLachlan in his first starring role, in his first feature film role ever, actually, as Paul Atreides. Basically, Paul Atreides is a prince of a royal family. I'm simplifying things here, and I should say that I am not an expert on Dune. I've never read any of the books, so don't come at me if you're a Dune head, all right? I'm trying to just, you know, sum this up as best I can, and I did watch this a couple weeks ago, so it's been a little while. I'm a little rusty. But Kyle MacLachlan is a prince of a royal family. Basically, they're in space, it's the future, da-da-da-da-da, and he ends up getting betrayed. His family's betrayed. He ends up having to desert his ship, his planet, his ship, and escape to the planet of Arrakis. Now, Arrakis is an interesting planet because that's where they harvest the spice. Spice is basically what is used for space travel in this future, and so the spice can only come from the planet of Arrakis. So it's a very sought-after element, and that's why Arrakis is so important to the story, I suppose. But basically, Paul Atreides goes to the planet with his mother after his family's betrayed by another royal family, featuring a floating fat man, which is how they describe him in the film. He gets on the planet, meets up with some people that live on the planet. I can't remember if they're native to that planet or if they've escaped there or whatever. Basically, he recruits them to help fight against this family that destroyed his family. He meets a young lady that he's got the hots for along the way. They fall in love. You can see where this is going from here. So that's basically the simple plot of the story, but where it gets bogged down is there's so much lore, so much just political intrigue that it gets hard to follow who exactly is who, and I think that is one of the weakest aspects of the film. What I love about the film, though, is the David Lynch-isms. If you're a fan of David Lynch, this does feel like a David Lynch film. For example, the Guild Navigator is such a weird creation. I don't know what it's going to look like in the upcoming Denis Villeneuve Dune, but I love how it looks in here. Basically just like a floating fat alien thing with an asshole for a mouth. Am I allowed to say that? Also, there's just a lot of weird, gross things in here that David Lynch throws in, like our main villain has these pusses that are always popping on his face. Just very disgusting, but I actually like that. I like that they kind of go for something that is so grotesque at times. Even better, there's a scene where a character gets poisoned, and our villains say that the only antidote to the poison is to milk a cat. That David Lynch, he's a wild and crazy guy. So I love the David Lynch-isms in the film. I think actually where the film falters is kind of towards the end when it gets into the big battles. Really, David Lynch is not great at directing action, at least as evident in Dune 1984? 84. So the end of the film is pretty weak. I think none of the action really stands out, but I love a lot of the effects. The production design is amazing. Great costumes. I mean, there's a lot to love here. It's easy to see why this was critically panned upon its release, and even on a first viewing, I think this was my second viewing of the film, even on an initial viewing for me, I had some issues with it. I thought it was, you know, overly long, a little slow, hard to follow, but as I've watched it now for a second time, I've grown to appreciate it more, and I think as I continue to go back and rewatch it, especially now that it's on 4K, I might grow to enjoy it even more, even though I do think it is Lynch's weakest film, and I think that's pretty universal. I don't think it's going to get out of that last place zone. Sorry, Dune, you're in last. But now let's dig into the actual 4K that Arrow put out. That was weird. There was just a lady knocking on my door, and then when I didn't answer, I looked through the peephole, didn't know her, so I didn't answer, and she just sat down in the hallway for like 5 minutes outside my door and left. I might not survive through this video. Maybe she heard me talking about Dune. Maybe she's a big Dune head. So, of course, you've got the hard box outer case. It does have a cover with a worm on it that looks like a butthole. Am I allowed to say that? There's the back there. Explains everything that's on it. You know, you got the spine, universal, yada, yada, yada. Let's see here. Then you open it up, pull out the case. Of course, it is a 4K case there. You got the, the black 4K case. The back is the same as it was on the hard box. You got 2 discs. Spin it like a DJ. And then this is the bonus disc. The first disc features the film. We've got these, I don't even know what the fuck you call these. What are they, lobby cards? I mean, you got to be a real Dune head to love these. I mean, these are great if you're, like, hard for Dune. You're sure I'm allowed to say that? But anyway, then you close it up. You open it back up again for some reason. Oh, yeah, because I forgot that the reversible artwork, which I like the reversible artwork, actually. This is actually the steelbook artwork. Okay, well, then I struggle to get it back in. Yeah, there we go. Which, that does look pretty nice, actually. I have to say, I do like that. Then let's see. You pull out this book. There's a 60-page booklet. Very nice booklet. Real great if you need to, like, you can put it by the toilet if you want to read this while taking a shit. Perfect for that. Yeah, it just looks like a great package here. I can't wait to read this. Pop it back in the box. And then now let's talk the poster. So it does come with a double-sided poster. This side right here, it actually looks pretty good. I kind of dig that artwork. Dune PG. I think that would look very nice in some home or whatever. I don't even know if you can see it here. But then the other side, you've got the new artwork with the worm. And this one, of course, if you really want to have a butthole-like picture hanging up in your home, but you don't actually want to hang up a picture of a butthole, you can hang up this worm that kind of has a mouth that looks like a butthole. It's even got that new Arrow smell. So like most Arrow collector box sets, beautiful. Now, there is a steelbook of this with different artwork. It's the artwork that's on the flip side of the actual case in here. I kind of just prefer this artwork also. I'm kind of not as big on steelbooks anymore, so I like this set. It looks good. Picture quality looks great. The 4K of this looks awesome. There are a few shots that look occasionally soft, but I think that's just more inherent in the cinematography of the film, because when you're on the planet of Arrakis, some of the landscape shots out there look amazing. Also, the costumes, the sets, all that really pops on 4K. So I think this is definitely a worthwhile upgrade. It's definitely an upgrade over the previous Blu-ray that I owned. This piece of trash. Actually, the Arrow 4K doesn't come with a Blu-ray of the movie, so actually maybe I should save that, because you never know when you're going to need just a Blu-ray. Yeah, I didn't mean to throw that. I should say that I did notice in Blu-ray.com, if you go in the forums, there were people commenting on some technical issues they had with the disc. Something where their disc was freezing up or glitching out around like the 45-minute mark, and enough people were commenting on it and saying they experienced the same thing, where it could be an issue inherent in the Arrow disc. Now, Arrow hasn't made a statement or anything like that, so they haven't commented on it as far as I know, and I didn't experience that, so I can't vouch for it, but, just be aware that some people were having a few issues there. If there's any downside to this release, because this is an awesome release, it is the fact that in terms of new bonus features, there's not that much. There was supposed to be a brand new extended feature-length making-of documentary on the release of the film, but it was not finished in time. Now, Arrow did announce it when they first announced this release. They said it's going to feature this big, long making-of documentary, and then they had to come out a few months later and said, well, we're actually not going to be able to include that on the release. Seems like they could have either delayed the release to include the making-of documentary, but then they wouldn't have had the 4K out in time for the upcoming remake. So they decided to get it out before that sounded weird, before the upcoming Denis Villeneuve movie. So that would have really took this release up to another level. But, I mean, there's still some good stuff here. There's actually a lot of vintage features, a lot of stuff from, like, 2005. There's, like, a half-hour-long 2003 making-of documentary that, it's pretty good. It's pretty basic, but it does feature some good interviews. In terms of brand new features, we do get 2 new commentaries for the film, which is nice. 2 new commentaries. And we do get a few new featurettes. We have a featurette that is all about the toys that were involved with the film because, Star Wars did create a thing where, movies came out out, and kids wanted to buy toys from that movie. So they did try to capitalize on that with Dune and release a bunch of tie-in toys. And with Dune being a bit of a flop, those toys didn't really sell well, and it's actually a pretty interesting interview. It features one of the guys from the Toys That Made Us or something. I don't watch that crap. The other featurette is an audio-only featurette. Now, there is visuals to go along with it, but all the interviews are seemingly recorded audio-only, so I don't know if that's a restriction because of COVID limitations. Who knows? But it is all about the score of the film, and the score was done by Toto, so that's a pretty interesting interview to see how the guys look back on the film and where they were at in their career, and the effect that the film may have had on their career with it being a box office flop. Who knows? At the time, I'm sure they thought it would have been really great for their career. And I do think the score is good, but, you know, maybe it wasn't the best choice for Toto as a band to focus their attention on scoring David Lynch's Dune. And there's a couple other new interviews, but other than that, it's all pretty much carried over, ported over vintage stuff. So there is tons of features on here, not a ton of new features, and I really think that extended making of documentary really would have just, you know, taken this into one of the top 10 releases of the year. As it stands, it's a great looking 4K, awesome packaging, loaded with, you know, shit if you're a Dune head. And I would definitely say the film is worth revisiting. I'd say it's worth a buy. I don't know. I think I'd give these scores out of 10. I'd give it a 7.2. We'll give it a 7.2 out of 10. It's a great 4K release. I really think if that extended making of documentary was included here, this could have been like an 8.5 into a 9 territory. This really could have been great. As it stands, I'm very glad that I own it, and I probably will go back and revisit this film every so often. So it's one that's worth picking up. So that was my review of David Lynch's Dune, released on 4K by Arrow. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Let me know, what do you think of David Lynch's Dune? Are you a Dune head? Let me know what you think of the Arrow 4K release, and just let me know anything else. If you got any other ideas for upcoming videos I could make, I'd love to hear your opinions. Make sure you do all the shit that every YouTuber tells you to do. You know, rate, comment, subscribe, all that shit. Also, check out our weekly podcast. We have a weekly podcast where we review new release movies generally, and we talk about other things that we watched as well. You can search for us. It's the Cinema Speak Podcast. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you listen to shows. You can find us. You're smart. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching, and until next time, I'll talk to you guys later.